It's time for the Culture Trumpet Podcast. Please welcome your hosts, Dan.
Alright, Boyle, tidy.
And the other one, Mark.
Hey up, Chuck. Make us brew.
There we are. Hello, listeners.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, people of Earth.
Well, you never know. This might not just be on Earth.
Hello, celestial beings everywhere.
Hello, carbon-based life forms. There you go. I'm always talking about Ennio Shikari. Get Ennio Shikari joke in there. Right, well, episode 4, series 3. Let's go.
Are we episode 4 already? Blimey.
Because I think we do 2 weeks now in between, it feels like we should be on more.
Are you saying we're not working hard enough?
No, we're working too hard is what I'm saying.
Oh, right.
Because this is just monotonous, and not monotonous, but it's never ending, is it? There's always something
you almost sound
talk
like you
about.
don't enjoy doing it.
It's too hot to do this today.
So, general theme for this week, because normally I think we kind of waffle on about, it tends to be cinema stuff or streaming stuff in terms of films and TV shows. I thought this week we would dedicate most of the episode to physical media, right?
Ooh.
As much as streaming is doing its thing wonderfully in most cases, in a few cases, you can't beat a hard copy of your favourite movie. Snigger, quite at the back.
Sorry.
You can't beat having a physical copy of your favourite movies and TV shows.
And I would agree to the most part of that. But the whole reason that this topic came up was for those who have been stalking Mark on the internet for a while know that he started Steelbook Blu-ray.com.
10 years ago.
As many as 10.
10 glorious years.
Gosh, and Britain was still run by the Tories back then.
It was.
10 years? Has it really been 10 years you've been running that site?
Yeah, November 2012.
Bloody hell, good for you.
I know.
So yeah, we've been meaning to talk about Steelbooks, but more importantly, physical media for a number of episodes. But
yeah,
the behemoths that are Marvel Studios just keep throwing stuff our way to start talking about. We want to be topical. So,
exactly.
And this week, not much has happened.
No, well, before we move on, let's see what has happened this week, or rather since the last episode, because I don't know about you, but it seems like Warner Brothers just haven't got a fucking clue what to do with DC.
It sort of feels like they've brought their child to work and they've let the child make some decisions, and they've gone, whatever decision you make, Timmy, we'll act with it, and the child has gone, shelf Batgirl.
Yeah.
Oh. But little do we know that it's actually an 18-year-old incel that's the child that's come to work.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's so if you've been on off planet for the last couple of weeks, basically Warner's had a plan, and it seemed like a fairly sensible one, to have a big budget guaranteed hits made for theatrical release. Your Batmans, your Aquamans, Shazam, Black Adam, and all that kind of thing, and the Flash, which remains to be seen.
I was about to say,
and kind of build those for theatrical release, and then have a series of mid to low budget movies for going direct to streaming. In this case, their HBO Max service, and I think that the first one of those was Batgirl, which had Leslie Grace as Batgirl, stroke Barbara Gordon. She's a musician, and she's done some acting work as well, and singing work, but this was kind of a big break kind of role. J.K. Simmons was back as Jim Gordon from the Zack Snyder's Justice League universe. We had Brendan Fraser, fan favourite actor, making his big comeback as the villain, Firefly. Michael Keaton, of course, back as Batman. Directed by the pair Adil and Bilal, who directed Bad Boys 3, which was a commercial and critical success. They also directed and kind of defined the look and feel of Miss Marvel for Disney Plus, which again, great looking, fun show. And it's like everything looked spot on.
But then
there's a merger, Warner Brothers and Discovery. New bosses come in, and I think a combination of stamping their foot as the new bosses, making their presence felt, and basically looking for the easiest way and quickest way to lose as little money as possible. So their argument, did you catch their argument for cancelling the film?
Films, plurals.
Well,
They've shelved loads.
There was an animated Scooby-Doo film that was shelved at the same time,
which the composer was still composing music for, and from what I read, it got announced that it was cancelled, and this person was still writing music for it. So that's peculiar, but I suppose he's got to fulfill a brief. Anyway, no, what was the reason?
Well, the reason they gave, originally it was rumoured that it was because the film wasn't very good, because it got a low test screening score in the kind of 60s. But as was pointed out, plenty of successful films got that kind of score before they were finished. There's still special effects work and so on to be done. It, for example, only scored 60 on its test screening, and it was a huge hit. Shazam, again, huge hit, and the finished product was a great film. So that reason was quickly debunked, I think. But the reason that the head of the studio, the new head, came out with was basically they'd looked at the money they'd spent on it, which was up to about 90 million, so a bit more than it originally had budgeted, and basically said, as a streaming only film, that is not going to bring in 90 million's worth of new subscribers.
That's valid.
But at the same time, it's not got the look and feel of a huge theatrical epic release.
Right.
And we don't want to spend any more money on it, kind of doing reshoots and upgrading it to have that epic feel. It's a small scale film, ultimately. And so they basically put it down as a cost to the business of the merger, which means they can just write it off against tax.
Wow. That's a shame.
Which is a real shame.
Michael Keaton is Batman again,
I mean, what the fuck? I mean, I can't believe that one way or the other they would not have made their money back. Because obviously it wouldn't just go on to streaming, because worldwide, obviously, Justice League, the Snyder Cut, went straight to HBO Max in the States. But worldwide, you had to buy it digitally. You had to pay to watch it.
And it was a success as well.
And it was a success, like on Sky Movies, you had to pay to watch it. On, I guess, iTunes, you had to pay to watch it. And then there was the disc release, which again was a big seller. So, okay, they might not have made 90 million directly from it from new subscribers to HBO Max, but worldwide, in fact, it was set for a theatrical release in the UK next year. So worldwide, they would have made the money back. But
well.
I mean, I think more than anything, I think it's just a real shame for the people involved, because
people spending years on a project for it to just be tax write-off, mate.
The directors found out when one of them got married the other weekend, and the directors found out at the wedding.
That's bad.
From the internet,
That's his fault for having his phone at his wedding, but there we are. No, that is
but
sad.
You got like Leslie Grace. It could have been her big hit. She looked good in the costumes. She clearly was. And again, Michael Keaton back, for Brendan Fraser back. What a waste! What a real shame!
It'll come out eventually. I reckon. I really do.
One way or the other, legally or otherwise, that film's going to get out. 'Cause it's not quite finished. I think they're saying it's about 90% finished.
Okay.
They were deep in post production. Yeah. Let's move on to happier things. What have you been watching?
Well,
lately?
I've been catching up with Better Call Saul,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm currently midway through series 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it now.
Cool.
It's the show that I kind of what I wanted it to be back in like series 2, like where I started to lose it. But I'm seeing the odd spoiler trickle through from the internet, which is fine. It's my fault for not staying up to date. But I vaguely know how it's going to end. I know certain characters turn up, but it's quite interesting seeing how characters in Breaking Bad arrive as themselves there. So, we're seeing the backstory to Fring's empire. We're seeing bit more of Mike's backstory. And yeah, obviously it's Saul, and it was interesting to see how quickly he loses Jimmy McGill's persona and goes straight into Saul Goodman when he needs to. That's been quite cool.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it so far. I'm sad to see it come to an end again, because when Breaking Bad finished, I was quite sad that was over.
Yeah.
And El Camino didn't fill that void. But
Okay.
it's been nice to watch something in that universe again.
Yeah.
And it be as good as it was whenever Breaking Bad was out, 6-7 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, it is a slow burner. It does take a while to get going.
But when it
the
does,
first couple of seasons are slow going. But yeah, once it does.
other than that, we've had Prey released on Disney Plus in the UK, Hulu in the US.
We have.
We've both seen it, and I think I'll park that discussion for next week. Next time.
Okay. You mean you don't want to discuss the best Predator film just yet?
Not yet. I think I need it to sit with me a bit more.
Okay, that's fair.
What makes it a good Predator film to you may not make it a good Predator film for me. And I think we can discuss that. Well, we'll argue about it for half an hour, I'm sure.
Politely, of course.
Of course. We never fall out. We're good friends.
No,
My first takeaway was, bloody hell, this is fresh and this is what the franchise needed.
Yes.
Was it the best Predator film? I'm not going to answer that.
Okay, that's cool. I will leave you with this little dangly bit.
I told you to stop putting your dangly bits on the internet.
I think the most underrated Predator film is Predators, the third one.
Oh, with Adrian Brody?
Yeah.
That was a great movie.
It's great, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I just don't think it gets the love it deserves.
I think Alien vs. Predator Requiem's the same.
Oh. Stop.
If anybody would like a podcast job.
Stop right there. Right, let's move on.
Let's move on before I say something I really regret.
Yes. So,
physical media.
Physical media. So, we'll get to Steelbooks shortly. But before then, I was very fortunate to be able to speak to David Hughes, who runs a small independent UK boutique label called Plumeria Pictures.
Okay.
Who they launched during lockdown. They've released a handful of titles so far, and they've got a couple more on the way. And I reached out to him because I wanted to know really what, certainly for the boutique labels, right? What goes into one? How do you set up a company from scratch? Because you just want to release movies, right? And then in terms of what goes into choosing titles, how you deal with, what kind of condition the source materials are in, and so on. And David was more than happy to kind of go into some great detail on stuff like that. So I think if anyone out there as a physical media collector ever sits and wonders about what goes into the choosing of titles to release from these indie labels, obviously you got the big indies like Arrow, then you got your second site 88 films, and now Plumeria. What goes into choosing those titles? And if you've ever grumbled, and thought, oh well, I wish they'd have done this with it, and wish they'd have done that with it, and looking at the limitations of what can be done, I think you'll really enjoy this. It's just over half an hour long. Like I said, David was more than generous with his time. Um, but I think there's some really interesting stuff in there. And for what must be one of the first ever times, um, because he was so kind of free flowing and coming out with all this information, I barely got a word in edgeways.
Which is
So
rare, I have to say.
for many of you, the next half hour is going to be a blessed relief. So enjoy it while you can, and we'll see you in about half an hour.
Roll the clip.
Roll the clip. So I'm here with David Hughes from Plumeria, a small independent boutique Blu-ray label, and hopefully we'll be able to cover some areas of interest in terms of the physical market, indie labels in general, as opposed to the big studio releases, and kind of what goes into some of the releases that the company comes out with. So thank you for your time, first of all. And I wonder if you could just maybe give us a bit of history about the company, what made you start it, and kind of your background and what you did before then.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, for the past 30 years, I've been working in film marketing. For the last 16 years, I've been running my own film marketing company called Synchronicity. But I've also, for the past 30 years, been writing for Empire magazine since issue 3. So I've always kind of had an interest in film as a fan and also as a professional. I still write for Empire magazine and I still write for Time Out and occasionally other magazines, but basically the day job is making ads for films. And we've always focused on cinema rather than home entertainment, not because we're snobbish or anything, but that's just because that's where our business was. So as you could probably imagine, when the cinemas all closed, all of a sudden Synchronicity went a bit, the work dried up a bit. So I needed to find some other interesting things to do. So one of the first things I did, which was like a sort of lockdown project, if you like, that I've been meaning to do for ages, was to basically start a podcast that would keep audio commentaries alive. So I would basically go out and find people to do new audio commentaries, that filmmakers, for their own films. And of course, it's something that you could easily do in lockdown. And that was 2 years ago. Now we're basically 20 something episodes into the podcast called Rogue Commentary. And basically, one of the first ones I did was with a producer and director of a 30-year-old film called Soft Top, Hard Shoulder, which was written by Peter Capaldi and starring Peter Capaldi, directed by Stefan Schwartz, who now does like The Boys and The Walking Dead and stuff like that. And it was produced by a producer that I knew. Anyway, so those two did the audio commentary for episode 2 of Rogue Commentary for this film, Soft Top, Hard Shoulder. And then they sent it to me. And then at the beginning of the commentary, both of them were saying, oh, well, we're going to have to do the commentary while we're watching this like YouTube rip of our own film because it's not available on like any format. Yeah. So I thought, oh my gosh, so basically this guy's got an HD master of the film. So I said, okay, leave it with me. And this is literally what happened. This is why I don't know how to pronounce the name of Plumeria Pictures. It's because I basically had to come up with a name for the company in about 30 seconds. I just like looked around the room and there was a flower. Anyway, so it's good job I wasn't on the toilet at the time. But so basically I said to the producer, I said, not to show you like behind the curtain too much, but I said, look, I'll go and crunch some numbers. If I can get a Blu-ray produced of this film from your HD master, could we do a deal where we say, look, no money up front, but we'll do we'll invest in the production and basically. So this became my second side hustle. All right. So basically using the resources of Synchronicity, the film company, I got the sleeve design. I found a bit of fan artwork for the slipcase cover. I paid the fan to use that. Basically there wasn't much in the way of extras, but of course I had this lovely audio commentary. Anyway, long story short, we brought the film out and on Blu-ray for the first time, and then all of a sudden, and the plan was basically the whole of the Sorry, it's a very long answer to a
That's-
single
that's
question,
fine.
but
No,
it's the
that's
whole
great.
story. But it was, and the whole of the business model had been engineered around the fact that I would plonk it onto Amazon, and then I would, get lots of orders in, hopefully, and then I would basically, be able to fulfill those orders, or have Amazon fulfill those orders. And then I found out one day that, so I'd never planned to actually sell these directly myself. I was just going to ship them all to, Amazon, whatever. And then I found out that Amazon doesn't do pre-orders unless you are like an established company and you've got permission to do pre-orders, right? So all of a sudden I thought, oh no, I've got to sell these myself until like release date. Anyway, so what I did was, my wife and daughter went out for the day, and I basically thought, right, it can't be that hard to start an e-commerce site. Literally within 45 minutes, I had the site like up and running, because it was so simple to do. So that's how PlumeriaPics.co.uk was born. Obviously, I had all the assets, like the artwork for the cover. I had a 3D picture of the sleeve, and all you need to do then is start like a Shopify site, or glorified Shopify site, whatever. So I did that. So literally, but by lunchtime I was able to put like pre-orders live, and all of a sudden, bing.
Fantastic.
So in order to publicize it, I went onto my Twitter, which had, I don't know, about 5,000 followers at the time or something like that. And I said, today would be a really good day for Peter Capaldi fans to follow me. Right. And all of a sudden, like, one Peter Capaldi fan must have retweeted it to the Peter Capaldi posse. And then all of a sudden they were saying, I don't know who this guy thinks he is, but blah, 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 and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, Soft Top Art Shoulder on Blu-ray for the first time ever. So we sold a few Blu-rays, and I'm talking like in the hundreds, but basically just about enough to break even. And all of a sudden I had a label. So then I thought, well, I guess I have a label, so maybe I should start looking around for other films to find. Now, obviously, that one was very was easy to do in some ways, because I had like an HD master that I already knew existed, and I also had access to the rights without ponying up what they call an MG, a minimum guarantee, which to explain, basically you have to give, let's say, $5,000 to MGM to get a 2 or 5 year license for the Blu-ray rights for one of their films. And you could take the DVD rights as well if you like, if you think it's got like potential mass market potential, But I thought, look, I really want to support physical media, and I have not the means, but I have the facilities to make, trailers and things like that, because that's what Synchronicity does as a day job. And it's just basically now finding titles that have that sweet spot of you can afford the down payment, if you like, and the production, which is not a small investment, because these companies do want a certain amount of money up front, and then you have to pay them. But with their second release, which was Sneakers, the numbers kind of worked. And basically on that one, I threw in my lot with Film Stories magazine, and we basically agreed to go like 50-50 on the costs of that title, and split the revenue 50-50 as well. Bear in mind that some of the revenue has to go back to Universal, because we licensed that title. So but Simon Brew from Film Stories magazine, I fixed up an interview with Phil Alden Robinson, a video interview, again done during sort of lockdown, which Simon did the interview, and then we edited that into like a 45-minute video piece to go on the Blu-ray. But we also sourced the original director and cinematographer commentary, which we added to the commentary list. But we also thought, well, I also thought there's a brilliant film critic in I think she's in Chicago, maybe, called Priscilla Page. And so I contacted her and said, hey, you're the world's #1 sneakers fan and expert. Would you like to record an audio commentary, because otherwise it's all just dudes,
Yeah.
And then Simon recorded a commentary with James Moran, who's, a pal of his, and they both love sneakers. So they recorded another commentary. So all of a sudden now I've got commentaries I'm not even putting on road commentary as podcasts. These are actually now, they exist just for the physical, which is great. Obviously we had to pay to license the commentary from Universal as well, which is something people may not know, that you also have to license the extras. Kind of a pain. So the next, so then there was it took a while to actually get the, to be honest, without any like investment. It took a while for us to find another film that we could basically afford to get the rights to, because we're not selling big numbers. And one of the issues I found, which I haven't managed to figure out how to solve yet, is that we are selling quite a few of our Blu-rays overseas to primarily America, as you'd imagine, but also Canada and Australia. But in the UK, we don't seem to be getting the traction that you would expect from a label that's based in the UK. And that is a bit of a mystery to me. And I think what it is basically is that because of the reach of social media, we don't do any advertising as such, but social media is our basically advertising outlet or our marketing outlet. Because the reach is global, and there's 370 million people in America or whatever, obviously there's going to be many more collectors in the US than there are here. And it may just be a matter of, as our releases continue, so our mailing list grows with each new demographic that we bring into the tent. And if we were smart about it, we would release across various demographics, so that we would build a mailing list that way. At the moment, we don't really have a focus. We're just kind of releasing like random stuff that we can like get hold of.
Well, I was going to ask you there, because obviously you went from.
Don't expect any method to our madness, basically.
Okay, this might be a brief answer then, but because obviously you went from soft top, hard shoulder sneakers. You've obviously got the new Mazes and Monsters
coming out in September.
In September, quick plug. That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a kind of wish list of titles that you want to get, or is it just looking around and seeing what's available and whether that perks your interest?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a wish list of titles, and I think that list probably has a massive crossover with everybody, with all of the other boutique labels' wish list of titles. And I mean, I get the avails, what they call avails, from from all of the studios that or distributors that aren't necessarily interested in looking at Blu-rays anymore. And I'll give you a little bit of insight. So one of the licensing agreements that I think is kind of interesting is that Second Sight, the well-established label, they are about to put out and the reason I know this is because one of our commentaries is on it, but they're about to put out a Blu-ray from Signature Entertainment for a film called Bull, for which we got a road commentary from the lead actor and the director.
Okay, yeah.
Which was a very nice episode of road commentary when the film came out, at the cinema and to streaming services. And then Signature and Second Sight licensed our commentary from road commentary, and they're putting it on the Blu-ray. But if you look at what Signature is offering in terms of their avails, you can see that Second Sight are being very choosy about what they pick up and put out. And it's the same with the titles that they've done from Vertigo's releases as well. They've looked at titles which are things like Lake Mungo or Raw, or and they put out these beautiful lavish editions, because they probably know that because there are horror fans out there who are collecting this stuff, then they're going to have an instant cachet. They're going to have an instant sales with that market. But if you're looking at Paramount's avails and you're thinking, oh, I could do a lovely Blu-ray of Josie and the Pussycats, you don't have that genre fan base to fall back on.
Oh, yeah.
You are basically just like it's a crapshoot. Then you're really rolling the dice, literally, in the case of Mazes and Monsters.
There's not that kind of rabid fan base of a
no,
particular genre. It's
exactly.
just more of
so Mazes and Monsters is a bit of a curiosity. And what we did with that one is we thought we're only going to do it because we can't get hold of the director. We're not going to get hold of Tom Hanks. You know, the screenwriter's not interested. And basically the author of the novel is dead, you know, so there's not much that we can do. So what we decided to do is basically go all in on a Paul Shipper fully painted brand new cover, you know,
which is fantastic.
We thought, oh, that's just going to be amazing because it's a small film, but he's going to make that look incredible. And he did, of course. Kudos to Paul. But I mean, it is a bit, you know, so it is a bit random. I would like to say, right, we're now at the point where we're going to start, you know, we're going to step up our releases to do a few more a year, and you're going to feel that there's some sort of theme going on here, but it really isn't. It's just like looking around at what everyone else is looking at and trying to figure out what could potentially be not like a massive, you know, hit or whatever, though that would be great, but something that we feel strongly enough about to spend, you know, 3 to 6 months doing all the legwork that you have to do to actually put these things out. You know, it's a lot of work to make the marketing materials, to get the cover, the sleeve artwork done, to think of an idea for the slipcase if you're going to do a slipcase. So, you know, we're doing these kind of minimalist design slipcases that have got a very, you know, it feels like they're building up into something that looks like a collection
visually.
But actually the title that we're doing after Mazes and Monsters, which I can't tell you about yet, but that's all good to go. We're not doing a slipcase on that one because basically it's not one of these, it's not one where I think the market is going to be strong enough for it, that it's going to call for. So what we're doing instead is we're doing lots of extras, but we're just saving that extra bit of money to put out essentially a mass market non-limited edition. It's going to be a wider release. So we're taking a bit of a chance, but you know, we're having to kind of grow up in public almost and learn this stuff from scratch, because none of us came from you know, we didn't work at Arrow for 10 years. We didn't, you know, we don't have a background in specifically home entertainment releases, so we're having to kind of learn everything from scratch. So that said, just where, as you said, do you have a wish list or anything like that? You know, yes, we do, but we're also very keen to pursue anybody's ideas if they say, oh, you know what, I'd really love it. You know, if there's a call for putting out something, unfortunately, there's probably a good reason why that thing, you know, hasn't been out yet. It's not like something like, you know, Red Rock West, where it's just a matter of time before somebody sort of puts up a big enough bid to put Red Rock West out onto Blu-ray, and I'm glad somebody else did it, so I don't have to go to all that trouble. I could just buy it and watch it. So I'm open to ideas, basically.
So in terms of when you're kind of looking around and there's a title that maybe you're interested in, and you reach out to the studio or whoever owns the rights at that time, in terms of the materials that you're given. So you said, for example, for Soft Top, Hard Shoulder, there was an HD master, and I'm assuming it was in fairly good condition, etc. But when you get the kind of source materials, are you at the mercy of what the rights holders can give you, or is there any kind of further work done, or can you go back to them and say, well, look, can you remaster that, or do you have those kind of contacts that can do some cleanup work if there's some damage and things?
Yeah, they're not going to do that because it just isn't worth it. One of the titles that we looked at producing, there was no digital master available. There was only an Interpos, I think, or an Interneg. It was it was a 40-year-old film. It was in LA, and the local LA Interpos to digital, like what used to be like digital telecine or whatever, they wanted just like tens of thousands of pounds to do a feature telecine, and that's before you even start cleanup. So one of the so what we do is we take the best available master that you get what you're given, and I think we've seen hints lately that some labels have said, "Oh no, we're like not going to take that." But we
I have
actually,
read a couple of people say that.
yeah, exactly. But there's but what we did is we took the master that they gave us, and then we with the next release after Mazes and Monsters, and we put that through ITV's. ITV has a restoration.
They're doing Leeds near me.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
right. Yeah.
Basically, they do commercial restoration as well as doing restoration for like BritBox and ITV Hub and Film 4 or whatever. They do commercial restoration. So we basically paid for them to restore the master that we had received.
Okay.
So it came out just beautiful.
Yeah.
And
some of the work that they do is fantastic.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So that was great. And it gave us a workable master that we could call, that we'd be sort of satisfied with. But then there's other times when it might be that there is that the curiosity for to actually have like a physical copy of the film with or without some extras, but perhaps with, you might say, well, it's worth putting out because we're not going to do like a 4K up-res of this a year later and charge you again for it. But it's just basically we want it to exist in a hard copy format. Now, Soft Top Hard Shoulder wasn't perfect. It didn't go through a restoration process. But I mean, all that was available previously was a crappy DVD and a YouTube rip of the DVD probably, or VHS or whatever. So, whatever you can put out there that's better than currently exists. I don't want to be completely shameless about it, but we have to we want to get the film out there, and then if we can do better later, there's a very good chance that we won't be able to do better later because this is what exists, and nobody's going to pay the exorbitant costs to have it because the juice just ain't worth the squeeze. Yeah. So
and I guess for some collectors or particular fans of certain films, they'd rather have something that might not be perfect than nothing at all, right? So
I don't know. I mean, that's the dice that I'm rolling again. I'm not sure. You'd probably know that better than me. As a collector myself, I'm very forgiving of, but obviously if I go onto the forums of Blu-ray.com and in the depths of a subreddit, there are probably people who are, complaining about even the smallest kind of digital bits of digital interference. Or
I think the bits that wind me up are people who are so used to modern digital photography or cinematography that they see grain as a problem, where actually a good transfer captures the grain accurately. But that's that's a whole other bugbear of mine.
Exactly. Yeah, why would I want Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 4K when
it's meant
it's
to
best
be
enjoyed in it?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess it's obviously still early days, so you've no immediate plans to kind of go down the 4K route or anything like that.
No, but I think we did, when we were offered sneakers, I did go back to Universal and say, look, we would potentially be interested in doing a 4K release, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to do a 2K and then a 4K a little bit later. It would have to be like sort of one or the other. And then I think we just kind of crunched the numbers and decided that even though it meant that the purchase, the list price of the Blu-ray could probably be 10 quid higher than the one that we were putting out there. We wanted to kind of hold our water a little bit before we jumped into the 4K market, and see how we got on with Blu-ray. But I'm certainly open to it. If somebody came along and said, well, you can have this in 4K because a 4K master exists, then I wouldn't up-res just for the sake of it. Then I would definitely be open to that suggestion and go all in on that format. It certainly seems to be an exciting format. I just don't know enough about it as yet, and I don't know whether the jump on a 30 or 40-year-old film would be significant, would be high enough to make it worthwhile. That's my question. I need to look into that.
Yeah, I mean, from personal experience, I think if the source materials are good enough and enough care is taken, there's definitely benefits to it. You really can see the difference. But again, it all depends on the source materials, right? If it's something that's shot on 16mm, then the difference between Blu-ray and 4K might be negligible. And is it worth the extra effort? But then again, I was reading the other day that although physical media sales overall are still generally in decline, 4K are going up. They're becoming a bigger and bigger proportion of those physical sales. So I guess people have got 4K TVs and all the rest of it. They kind of want to get the benefit. So in terms of, obviously you started during lockdown, and that's a kind of difficult time anyway. But are you seeing, how can I put this? There's obviously the streaming services are there, right? And as I've just said, the physical sales are in overall decline over the last decade or so. But in terms of how the sales have gone so far, are you kind of encouraged? Obviously, you're carrying on. You've got more releases in the pipeline. So it's clearly, I guess, financially worth it for you. But are you overall encouraged with how things have gone and the reception of the releases so far?
Yeah, as I say, I'm a bit baffled about the UK side of things, and what would be interesting is, because we're, as I say, we are kind of learning as we go and growing up in public, what the smart thing to do would probably be to put out a 4K release so that we could see if there was a bump, because that format is not in decline, as you say. So that would probably be a smart move from a business point of view. But because the day job or day jobs have sort of have geared up again over the past kind of 9 months, I haven't had quite so much time to sort of tend the Blu-ray boutique garden. But I'm now thinking that we need to kind of look at this as something that's where we're releasing things on a more of a regular basis, which is why we'll have a couple of titles out before the end of the year, and then hopefully move quite quickly on the next few releases. Because once you decide you're going to do it, and I recommend this to anybody who wants to start a Blu-ray, a boutique Blu-ray label in their bedroom, once you decide that you're going to do it, you can actually do it quite quickly, because the longest period that you've got to wait is from the sending everything to the place that's going to actually produce them, and then waiting to get them back. So that's the kind of longest period. But actually the sort of actually physically putting the thing together, if you're given the elements like the existing extras, and you just want to sort of collate it all together. So hopefully we can get moving a little bit faster on things. But I mean, when you suddenly start thinking about like, oh, what would I like to release on Blu-ray? It's like, I'm going to London, where shall I eat? There might be 50,000 restaurants, but you suddenly go blank. So I can't really think of anything. So if somebody says to me, gives me an idea for a title, I'll then like devote all of my time to looking to see if that's viable until I know that it isn't. But also I'm looking at these avails and thinking, oh, that's kind of interesting. I mean, for instance, we just got sent a list of avails the other day, and I immediately jumped on one film that I know doesn't have an anniversary coming up. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's been asking after it, but I remember that it's really, really good. And I know that people will like respond to its existence. But the question is, will there be enough people who are still buying Blu-rays, don't expect it to have a simultaneous streaming release, and then maybe they wouldn't even watch it if it turned up on Mubi or whatever. It's like so hard. And there's also the question of, should I maybe look at some of these, like an Australian label or something, and say, maybe I should be looking at buying, being the UK outlet for some Australian releases, and then I wouldn't have to do all of the work myself, because there's a couple of companies over there who are doing like really exciting stuff.
It's Imprint is one of them, isn't it?
Yeah,
they released
amazing work.
They put a Breakdown on Blu-ray, the Kurt Russell film, and I had to get the import. But it's a great little release. There's some nice extras on there, beautiful. Good quality transfer.
Absolutely. And the Music of Chance as well. I think they've just just put out, or they've just really good.
I just wondered. There's obviously several labels around. The second site Obviously you've mentioned 88 films, Eureka.
Mhm.
Obviously, the Arrow is probably the one that most people know well as the kind of biggest
Yeah.
of the small companies. So from your perspective then, what do you think Plumeria are doing that kind of sets them apart? Is it the case of you're not sticking to those well-worn genres? And is it the kind of, I don't want to use the word random, but is it the kind of more eclectic titles? Or,
Yeah, no,
or
it's
what
pretty random.
what is it that kind of sets you apart from some of those others?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably that we aren't afraid to go without a genre, which is probably commercial suicide. But I also think that we've got to, because we use synchronicity for all of the stuff that we produce on these things. It also means that we don't have to rack up overhead on the label itself. So each release is kind of its own, kind of self-sustaining thing. And basically, my hope is that with each new release, we can like I say, just build up our mailing list and build up our presence. And as we found when we announced Mazes and Monsters about 10 days ago, we had lots and lots of people who found out about us through the publicity of Mazes and Monsters, but didn't know that the label existed. And then they went back and ordered like a bunch of things from the catalog. Yeah. So now it's like, oh, right, okay, so that's a good way to boost your back catalog.
Has a nice knock-on effect.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that any of the bigger labels have that opportunity really, because they're just selling sort of titles steadily. The other thing is that we are, for reasons that were originally weren't planned, we are now doing all of our sales through direct sales, and that means that we can operate on such a low, again without the overhead, because all of the stuff that's done through synchronicity. It also means that we're keeping more of the we're not giving a huge chunk to Amazon.
Yeah.
And so it creates a little sort of a bit of exclusivity there, which I think is quite good, and also means that these monolithic companies aren't, obviously Arrow is like owned by the Hut now, so it's they're obviously selling through Zavi and stuff like that. But we're quite happy just to do our sales direct, and then we can really keep an eye on the numbers, keep those hold those margins, and hopefully that will mean that we'll be able to do a little bit more in the future. But what we won't be doing is we won't be doing like wild experiments of very obscure stuff. We'll be doing things where we do actually think, I reckon we can sell X number of titles to break even. So we won't be doing anything super wild, but I don't think we'll know really what our forte is until we've got like half a dozen or a dozen titles under our belts. And then I think we'll see, oh, okay, that's what we do.
There's a pattern.
A little bit. Yeah. Because I don't know if there's any real pattern to imprint in Australia. I just love what they do. I love that they know good films when they see them, and when the rights come up.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Thanks again for your time.
No problem.
It sounds really easy, so I'm just probably going to go and set up a label.
Well,
pick
happy
my
to
first
give you
release
the TED Talk, the masterclass, one-on-one anytime.
That's fantastic.
How to set up a boutique Blu-ray label in under an hour.
That's brilliant. That's it. Profit. That's fantastic. Thanks again.
No problem. Good chatting with you, and good luck with the pod.
No, thank you very much, and good luck with all your upcoming releases.
All right, thans.
Cheers.
Bye now. Good to meet you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was David from Plumeria Pictures. As I say, I really enjoyed that chat, and I hope anyone listening out there as fans of the company, their releases, and just physical media in general, and especially these indie companies, these boutique companies, I hope you kind of got a bit of an understanding of what goes into their work, and why, we've said it before, it's really important to kind of support what they do, because they do work on tight budgets. They do work, they're often small teams, and there's a hell of a lot of work that goes into it. And if we want to see some of these films that the big studios are just going to not bother doing anything with, we need to show them that there's an audience out there who are going to buy them.
And just to throw in here, it's not an ad. We reached out to them if they'd be so kind to come and talk to us, and they did.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. So yeah,
absolutely,
we're getting nothing from this.
No.
They're not either, other than a bit of publicity, which is good for them. But yeah,
more than happy to give them some publicity.
Absolutely, it's not an ad.
I think I've said before, and I know it sounds cheesy, but some of these films, they're looking at films now that have never had a disc release ever, or they've never certainly been to this country, or they've never had a high definition release. And it's some of these companies, the work they're doing, if not for that work, these films might be lost forever. You never, they catch the raw materials just in time to get them restored and digitized. A year later, the materials might be lost. So
but links are in all the usual places.
We'll put the links in, but again, Soapbox, support what they do. Show you care.
Anywho,
so
physical
media, and I guess specifically Steelbooks, right? That's kind of ultimately, as you said earlier on, where all of this came from.
Mm-hmm.
Was my Steelbook site. There's a huge group of collectors out there, which we see both on my site and Twitter account and on other forums and so on. Okay, I'll ask you, because you collect Steelbooks. So what is it that attracts you to Steelbooks? What's going to make you decide whether to get one or not?
Well, to start off with, it was... Let's go back to the beginning. So my first Steelbook was Cloverfield on DVD. So that, looking at the release date of that, it was June 9th, 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't seen this format of release before. And, back then I was a lot younger than I am now. So it was when I first probably started buying DVDs.
Yeah.
Myself, I was sort of that age. And, it was a great film. Really enjoyed it. It was a film that I snuck into the cinema to see, because I was too young to see it at the time. So to me, I think it held a bit of value. It was a bit rebellious, and it was probably definitely the first 15 I saw in the cinema, because I snuck in to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't condone that anyway, but
I do.
I turned out alright.
Well, yeah.
And the choice was boring DVD, plastic cover, or this new hard-wearing case.
Mm-hmm.
And I quite liked that.
Yeah.
So I remember, I think it might have been for my birthday around that time, I asked for Cloverfield Steelbook, and parents being parents, they are the best they can be, didn't really know what that was. So I remember my mum saying, I've bought you the special edition Cloverfield, but I'm not sure it's the right one. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
She went, well, I'm worried now. So she showed me, I went, no, that's not it. So anyway, we took it back to HMV, and the Steelbook was just £2 more expensive, and Mum berated me for that a little bit. But, jokes aside, she was happy to get the one I actually wanted, because,
of course,
parents are awesome in the most cases.
Yeah.
And so then, I remember buying District 9 around release, on release, I believe. And again, that's when I was always buying normal plastic casing Blu-ray DVDs, and then the odd special Steelbook that would come out.
Yeah.
But I remember when I sort of properly started collecting Steelbooks was when Blu-rays came out, and they stopped releasing Steelbooks as DVDs.
Gotcha. So they moved on to Blu-ray Steelbooks, yeah.
Uh-huh. And it's then did I really start collecting them, and I stopped buying DVDs. But then in more recent years, I've stopped buying plastic casings, and I tend to only buy the Steelbooks, which is a pain in the ass because they're expensive now. But they kept moving Steelbooks to the premium copy of the media. So first it was DVDs, then Blu-rays. So DVDs got dropped. Yeah. Now we're at obviously Ultra HD 4Ks, which sometimes include a Blu-ray, but we're not always getting a Blu-ray Steelbook now. But that's a really long long-winded history of why I started buying them, but
No, that's cool. My first couple actually were kind of. I didn't even realise what they were. I can't remember which order they were in, but the first ones I got were again DVDs. There was 300, American Gangster, and Incredible Hulk,
cool.
and they were literally. I bought the DVDs and they happened to be Steelbooks
Right, gotcha.
rather than specifically because they were Steelbooks.
See, I did it the other way around. So I was buying
Okay.
them because they were Steelbooks.
Sure. So mine kind of arrived, and it'd be like, oh, what's this metal box thing all about, kind of thing. And then I kind of thought nothing else of it, but then I had a friend who was really into them, Steelbooks, and he was kind of explaining to me that you should see what people buy. They'll buy the same film time and time again from different countries because the artwork's different.
Okay.
So they'll have 4 or 5 copies of one film, and I remember thinking, what idiot buys 4 or 5 copies of the same film? You'll never fucking get me doing that. 10 years later.
Here we are. Yeah.
So I kind of thought, okay, let's look at this, and I kind of had a look around and looked in some of the forums and so on, and kind of quickly left because some of those places are cesspits. But in general, I got what was going on. I thought, okay, this is interesting, and kind of I wonder how many other people are kind of interested. And that led me to start the site, which kind of obviously reports on releases that are coming up and etc. etc. So yeah, mine kind of started accidentally almost by not really
Okay, that's
realizing
interesting.
what I was buying.
I've made that excuse before, Mark. Don't worry.
But I was looking into the history of Steelbooks, and I did actually have some backwards and forwards with Scanavo, who are the company who created Steelbooks.
Cool.
So it should be noted that Steelbooks aren't the only metal packaging for discs, right? There's a couple of other formats. I think Future Pack is one of them, and Metal Pack is another. So the idea's the same, and if we go back maybe 5 or 6 years, you would sometimes get what you thought was a Steelbook, and it'd actually be a Metal Pack or a Future Pack. But those have kind of dropped off now. I don't think anything's released in those packaging anymore. I think it's all actual official Scanavo Steelbooks. But they sent me a bit of information just around their history and so on. And I noticed that the first Steelbook wasn't actually for a film. It was for a PlayStation 2 game called Killzone that was released in 2005.
I remember the game.
So, having never owned a PlayStation, I have no idea about that game. I'm not familiar with it. But if you own a Killzone Steelbook, then you own the very first ever Steelbook.
Ooh.
I know, right? Go search in the loft and see what you can find. But obviously, then they quickly went on, right? DVD, Blu-ray, as you said, there's now 4K.
Mm-hmm.
Game releases are quite regular, and they also do like CD-sized ones as well. There's been a couple of soundtracks released in Steelbooks, and I think they do like the different the Nintendo Wii size, weird shaped boxes.
Do you mean the Switch ones?
Switch, sorry, yeah, the Switch.
I've never seen those as Steelbooks, but I know the size to compare it to.
I'm sure I've seen, but anyway, they do all sorts now.
Okay.
Right? So from that first few that you started then with, how many Steelbooks do you think you have now?
I mean, I could go down and count them if I really wanted to.
We don't have that long. Rough guess.
Well, if I look at my complete collection here on Blu-ray.com, there's 381 movies. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, really.
Is that your complete collection?
That I've logged, yes.
Oh, right, okay.
That doesn't contain most of the DVDs that are still living in boxes somewhere.
Got you.
Because I'm not that bothered, but I logged all my Blu-rays, all my Steelbooks at that time.
Mm-hmm.
basically when I moved out for insurance purposes, really. Just or
Sure.
if something ever were to happen or I got robbed or whatever, I'd be able to go back and see what I own.
Yeah.
Insurance purposes is a shit excuse. So, there's probably a good mix of 60-40 plastic versus steelbook. So,
Okay.
but some of them are collections. I genuinely couldn't put a number on it.
Okay.
I wish there was an easy way of doing it on certain websites, but there isn't.
No, they don't make it easy, do they?
No, but I don't know. There's probably good over 150. It's got to be.
Okay. I've asked you that question without having any idea how many I've got either.
Oh, thanks for putting me on the spot, mate.
That's all right. I know my complete collection of everything is about 1,300.
And is that including your DVDs, your
Type.
Blu-rays, UHDs?
Yes.
Everything.
That's all my discs.
Okay.
Now that's titles, right? So obviously some are box sets that have got several discs in them.
Sure.
But I'm looking at that on the shelf behind me. I'm going to say that maybe 1/5 to 1/4 are now steelbooks.
Okay.
So we're looking at maybe between 300, 400, maybe.
In fact, I will be able to give you a correct answer. Looks to be about 115.
Okay.
So
Call
yeah,
yourself a collector.
Oh, shut up.
What the hell's going on? What's your favourite? Do you have a favourite?
Do you know, I haven't. I used to. So the first sort of collection that I started collecting seriously for steelbooks was the MCU, and I still do it to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But I started collecting it from Avengers Assemble.
Oh, right, okay.
So I bought Avengers Assemble.
Mm.
That's phase 1, right? I then bought Iron Man 3, which is part way through phase 2, and then I went, I want to start collecting the MCU now. So I had to go back and buy the first Avenger, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 1 and 2, Thor, Ant-Man, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And my white whale at that time was either Ant-Man or Guardians of the Galaxy. So Guardians of the Galaxy was the cassette player, which I thought was incredible. And my favourite one was the SSD, solid state drive, of Ant-Man. And little
really
teeny
nice.
tiny Ant-Man was in there.
That was nice.
And I remember at the time that was the most expensive, not Guardians. Sorry, Guardians was the most expensive steelbook. Pardon me, that I'd had to buy, and I think it was like 50 quid second hand from CX. So at that point I was like, Jesus Christ! But it was like the last one to complete my rebuy, if you like, of the MCU, and then from then I've been buying them as they come out.
As the new,
And that was very, very grateful to your website telling us when it was coming out. So I've got all of the MCU now on steelbook, a bunch of the X-Men movies. But my favourite, I really don't know. As I said, it used to be one of the MCU ones that was really tough to get. I can't really say. I don't know. I like the Jaws 4K that came out a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah,
really like that because it's just the artwork and it's just solid. And the special edition they do is pretty cool.
Yes.
But I don't think I have a favourite.
Okay.
One of the most obscure ones I have is Mamma Mia 2, Here We Go Again. But that's cool. I tell you a collection which was really hard to find, because again I started buying them after the fact, was the Sherlock TV show.
They were nice as well, weren't they?
Well, yeah, but it brings you onto a point of not all of them fucking match each other.
That is, that's one of the real criticisms I see a lot, and I have to agree, which we'll come on to in a second. But yeah, I think my favourite art is probably, it is a matching set, and it's the Breaking Bad set. And
that's interesting, because one of my favourite items in my collection is a Breaking Bad set.
Right.
But it's not steelbook. So
is it the barrel?
It's the barrel.
Yeah.
Which I think is worth a fortune now. But
I think it is. But they brought out, I think it was a Xavi exclusive in the UK, but you could get them obviously around Europe. I think it was a European release. And it was artwork by Ralph Steadman.
They were the cool cartoony things, weren't they?
Yeah, like the kind of caricature, sketchy things. And I remember at the time they were so divisive in terms of the feedback, and the comments were like, I mean, I love them because I like Ralph Steadman's artwork anyway, right? So I just thought they were brilliant combination of a fantastic artist and a brilliant subject, and a matching set released at more or less at the same time. Just fantastic. But some of the hate that it got in terms of artwork, but that was a matching set. And when there is a set released kind of after the TV show or movie series is finished, fantastic, right? Because there's this upcoming Godfather trilogy box set,
Sure.
not a box set, but the trilogy release that's coming out. That looks really nice. There was the Game of Thrones. There's been a couple of those. There was a regular steelbook and then the 4K steelbook, each of which they had different art, but each set had matching artwork.
Because for me, the bit that I need to match in my head is the spine. I don't give a toss what the front and back looks like, because I don't display like that. And if you do, you're a nutter, because how much space are you taking up? So if the spine doesn't match, oh my god! And even if it's just slightly off black, so the one I'm going to bring in here is the Jurassic World, Jurassic Park steelbooks.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, it was probably the first 4K release on Steelbook. Zoom.co.uk, remember them? They did Jurassic Parks 1, 2, and 3. Then Jurassic World was released with HMV, and it matched.
Yeah.
Now Fallen Kingdom also matched, but I think it's slightly off colour.
And but here it matched, and the angels sang, because it was like.
Well, it didn't really match.
Well, but it matched enough.
It matched enough for me not to rip my hair off.
Yeah.
But Dominion,
nothing like him.
If has that been confirmed yet?
Yeah, it's nothing like.
Fuck's sake!
Nothing like him.
What's the point?
What's worse, you see, is there's the steelbook you can buy on its own with the raptors on the front, which doesn't match the existing ones.
Which also is like 2 seconds of the film.
Sure. But there's also a 6-movie steelbook box set, which has got different art again.
And hang on. Where can you get that, Mark?
That was a Xavier exclusive, but it's sold out now. But I think Best Buy in the States.
Well, I don't live in there, do I? So, here we are.
Other Amazons in the UK.
So, Jurassic World Ultimate Xavier exclusive Steelbook Collection 4K Ultra HD includes Blu-ray, not an ad.
So,
100,
those releases...
£119.
Yeah.
So, something that I've already collected.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Yeah, but those 6 all match.
Yeah, but Mark, I'm a collector, not a recollector.
I'm not suggesting you buy it. I'm agreeing with you here. Is that's even more infuriating?
And what?
Because they've released 6 standalones where the last one doesn't match. The 5th one will give a pass, but the last one really doesn't match. Or a box set.
I've just seen the artwork. Fucking hell.
And it's nice artwork, isn't it?
It's stunning, but...
Right? But it's different artwork. And that's the only way you can get a matching set with different art again. Is to buy the box set, right? And there's, they're not the first, are they?
So this is where the argument for steelbooks falls over. It's like they're pretty, right? They're pretty. They're hard. They're durable. Yeah. But you're more likely to get a matching set years down the line of sequels by buying the 4K Ultra HD or slipcases.
Once the series has finished. If you're buying it as the series goes along.
Unlikely?
Well, I think unlikely that they'll match. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there seems to be, we've had steelbooks of the Fast and Furious films that came out around the time Fast and Furious 6 was out, and those 6 match, but then 7, 8, and 9 are all different. Individually, 7, 8, and 9 don't even match each other. They're all completely different. Obviously, you've got stuff like Star Wars. The only reason the Star Wars ones have matched in terms of their style is because they have a style of poster that is consistent.
Well, again, I'd argue
and
that
they used the poster art.
they
don't
didn't for a long time, and then when they re-released them on Steelbook, gosh, when was that? 2 years ago?
Yeah.
That's when I actually recollected them, and oh god, my wallet didn't thank me for that. But just having a quick look here on the thingy. There we go. So yeah, when they re-released the whole Skywalker saga on Steelbooks, yes, they started to match. But then Disco Vader came along in the middle of that. You know, episode 5. It's good artwork, but it's not the poster artwork like every other one had.
Well, it's the teaser poster artwork.
Yeah, but it's not the poster artwork.
It's artwork that was used on an official poster.
Yeah, but Mark, it's not following the trend of the other ones, is it?
What, the ones that also used artwork that was used on official posters?
Yeah, but looking at the best one they ever made, The Last Jedi, that is the theatrical poster.
Yeah.
Looking at The Phantom Menace.
Yeah. And that Empire poster was used in theatres, yeah. Yeah. So that's a theatrical poster as well.
Yeah, but it's not the.
Maybe not the final.
Yeah. And it was also scratched to shit, and I had to wait. How long did we wait in the end for that?
Oh, there were problems with that one, actually, weren't there? Yeah.
Anyway, right. Let's talk about re-releases, because we're going to be. This is going to be a long ass episode if we don't get through the points.
Re-releases, yes. One of the regular complaints is that certain titles get released again and again and again.
Yeah.
And people are like, why is this getting its third, fourth, fifth, whatever release when film X, or my favourite film, or this classic film, hasn't ever had a Steelbook release?
Yeah.
Now, I think I know the answer to that one.
Well, to me it would be because the other ones have sold out, we want to make more money.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
It's money, isn't it? So it's like Disney know that they can. I mean, how many different MCU collections has there been? There's been the original ones that came out as each film came along. Then there were like the 4K. Oh no, then there were a series of lenticulars. Then there were some collections, like there was an Iron Man 1 to 3 Steelbook, there's a Captain America one and a Thor one. Then there's the 4K ones. Then there were the Mondo ones. So there's been, what, 4, 5 editions at least of each? And why? Because people buy them.
Yeah, people buy them, it sells out, and then, bosh, they go, well, we'll do another one.
And if they spent the time and effort and money on releasing whatever, not necessarily obscure, but not as high profile film, and it's only got a few fans and it doesn't sell, well, that's it. It doesn't sell. They won't do that again. They'll go back to Star Wars and release another set of Star Wars. So,
with that in mind, do you know what film you have bought the most repeats of?
I think probably The Thing.
Good. Okay, because that ties in with a comment that we have.
Yeah, so not all Steelbooks. I've got a couple of non-Steelbooks, but they're special editions. I've then got the Mondo Steelbook by Jock, which is a signed one.
I know you've mentioned that in the past.
Yeah. So The Thing, yeah, probably, and I'm guilty of it myself, a couple of the Marvel ones, I've probably got 2 or 3. Because, I like the Mondo artwork that came out for one and so on. So there's a few that I've maybe got 2 or 3 of, but I think that's the maximum.
Okay.
But The Thing, yeah, because we did get some comments in, and I think one person.
Did you not want to ask me?
Oh, I beg your pardon.
So rude.
All right. Well, now you know how it feels.
Yeah, fair enough.
So how about you then? What's your repeat buy?
So I didn't realise. One I definitely knew, but the second one is a bit of a surprise. So I didn't realise that. So the one which is slightly more surprising is, I think it's Jurassic Park and The Lost World. Oh right. Okay. Because I bought. Originally, I had the DVDs. Originally I had the Lost World DVD.
Yeah.
Then I remember buying a Jurassic Park trilogy DVD steelbook in London somewhere in a Essex.
Yeah.
Then I had the Steven Spielberg's Director's Collection Blu-ray box set, which I think is stunning.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then I bought the Steelbooks in Ultra HD. So I've had it on
Right.
DVD twice, Blu-ray once, 4K once. But the one that I actively knew this was being multiple buys was Jaws.
Right.
So good old Jaws DVD, Steven Spielberg collection. Then I bought the Blu-ray Steelbook, and then of course they brought out an Ultra HD 4K, all singing, all dancing collector's Didgeridoo-Dad.
Of course.
Which had a misprint book, which I ended up selling on eBay for a couple of quid. Thank you, whoever bought that. And yeah, I bought that 4 times. And I still have... The DVD's probably long gone, but I've still got the Steven Spielberg collection of the 2 Steelbooks.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, they sort of sit there and they go, I ain't getting rid of that.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh, there's a new one coming out, but I don't want to get rid of the old one because I like that as well. And is it kind of the film or the artwork that will grab you? Would you buy, say, any Jurassic Steelbook or any Jaws?
Well, not now, no. But at the time, rebuying the Jaws Blu-ray was because of the artwork. You know, I had it in a collection. I didn't want the DVD anymore.
Yeah.
So it was either a Blu-ray just as a disc in this big book. I just want the Steelbook, brilliant. And then they brought out the Ultra HD one. I was like, I would like to see that in Ultra HD because it's been reviewed really well and it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it is one of my all-time favourite films.
Yeah.
But my question to you then is, have you, and I know my answer to this, have you bought Steelbooks even if you dislike the art, but you just know you have to own that film? Either as part of a collection you're building or because it's an obsession? I don't know.
No. If I really don't like the artwork, I will buy the regular release. However, I have bought Steelbooks where I don't like the film, but I love the artwork.
That's interesting. See, I've not done that. I have made my bed of collecting the MCU in Steelbook form.
Yeah.
And some of the Steelbook artwork has been horrendous for those films. But I've started, so I shall finish.
Yes.
And coming back to the continuity of spines, non-existent in the MCU world, but you can buy these like magnets.
Oh yes, yeah. There's a couple of people, aren't there, who make those.
So I think mine was a chap called Drumass on eBay.
Rings a bell, yeah.
But to me, it's like up to one of the first new Spider-Man films, and I haven't got them since. And it's like, you don't do them anymore.
Oh.
So I need to find one. He's from Texas, which is really expensive. Or just took ages to ship through no fault of his own. But I need to find a UK-based one. But I think you can get them on Etsy. But I just want. I think I just want more plain ones. But yeah, it's just.
No, I have bought stuff purely for the artwork. I think the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Terrible film.
It's not good. I appreciate its importance in the place of horror, blah blah blah. But it's just not a film I like. But the Steelbook is really nice. So yeah, if I don't like the art, I'll just skip it and go for the standard release. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not kind of obsessive in terms of I must buy this in Steelbook form just because I've got the others, But again, other people will pay it, and it's the same as from the studio point of view. If people pay that money, then studios or whoever this person is will charge that money. And as much as people complain about the prices going up to 30 quid for 4K or 32 for Disney releases or more for some other labels, it's stop buying them then. So going back to what's had too many releases, Titans of Cult, who launched, God, must be 3 or 4 years ago now.
Is that it?
Yeah, they're not been around for that long.
Okay.
Doing like these deluxe 4K Steelbook releases, which are admittedly very nice. Some of the titles I've chosen are a little bit questionable. I don't think we needed a 4K deluxe Steelbook release of fucking Space Jam, right? But they've done Blade Runner, Mad Max, Fury Road. They did Wonder Woman, was one of the early releases. Goodfellas, Halloween. our favourite 2018
We don't
Halloween.
get paid to mention Halloween, but we will
No,
every
we
episode.
We will. And a few others. And their next release is going to be The Thing.
Which I'm going to buy this time.
Yeah.
Because I have the Arrow Blu-ray, which is phenomenal.
Yep.
But I don't have it in Ultra HD, and I've been put off buying it for I don't know why, but I just have.
The 4K is superb because Arrow did the 4K remaster, but they just released the Blu-ray, not a 4K disc. But Universal have taken their 4K remaster, it's their disc and it's their release, and it looks incredible. It really does. And Titans of Cult's artwork and packaging looks nice, right?
Good.
But here we are now with the 5th, 6th easily Steelbook release of The Thing. And I'm sure there's other films that have had more. If you look worldwide, I bet you some of the Dark Knight films have had more releases worldwide.
I've got a few of them, yeah.
And again, the Marvel movies. I mean, there's got to be a limit, right? Before people just get pissed off.
Well, yeah, probably.
You'd think.
I'm just going to agree with you on that one.
There doesn't seem to be, though. That's the problem.
So here's one that was sort of... it's been inspired, I guess, by a comment we had in. This is from Ian Hunt. Thank you for getting in touch. In the comment, he mentions HMV DVD Steelbooks. The bit that I struggle with these days is obviously you get a Xavi exclusive. You then might get an HMV exclusive. Amazon in the game as well.
Yeah.
And I do find it quite hard to narrow down which one I'd like. And then it's trying to play which one's going to match the collection at times. And yeah.
Yeah. It's a strange... Well, look at... Well, all right, yeah, let's go back to The Thing, right? Because when The Thing 4K came out last year, Xavi had an exclusive with artwork by Matt Ferguson, which matched the artwork he did for the Studio Canal John Carpenter releases from a couple of years previously, which was fantastic. Not only was it matching artwork, it was matching artwork from 2 different studios. But Universal asked him to make the artwork match what he'd done for the other ones.
Okay.
Unheard of. Brilliant. Fantastic. Because, genuinely, he did the 4 for Studio Canal. Universal said, do it like those. For fans, for collectors, brilliant. Please do that more often, right? But that was a Xavi release. But then at the same time, Amazon had their own exclusive with different artwork. And it's like, so do you buy both? Do you just buy one? So you're right. Which one do you choose?
Yeah.
And you get stuff like where, all right, HMV had their exclusive of the Batman, which came in a slipcase with art cards, etc. Looked nice, and it had one particular piece of artwork on the steelbook. And now Xavier doing this Batarang box that's got 2 steelbooks in it of artwork that was used in other countries.
Yeah.
So 2 different steelbooks in one box. So it's like, okay, if you're a collector, you're going to buy that and have 3 steelbooks of the same film. And I know people will have a pot shot at Xavi a lot. And I think that's purely because they do more exclusives than anyone else right now.
Agreed.
Amazon do a few. HMV have never really recovered from their heyday before they had all their troubles. And Xavi have picked up the slack. And it's difficult to blame the retailer, right? Because it's ultimately what gets released is down to the studios. And if a studio comes to Xavi or any retailer and says, right, we want to release this, we want a minimum order of 5,000 copies, 10,000 copies, whatever, do you want it or not? And HMV say no, Xavi will say yes, and vice versa. So I understand why people get frustrated and kind of point the finger at the retailers. But ultimately, it's the studios. They're the ones who are coming out and just re-releasing the same old things again and again because ultimately they know they're going to sell. And going back to what we were saying earlier, this is one area where I think some of the independent labels do at least make an effort to bring some of those, Arrow do more steelbooks than the others, but the others do, they will do a steelbook release of something that's a little bit more obscure, and they will put a bit more effort into it. Second Sight have done a few, and so on.
Well, for the record,
go on. For record,
I still quite like collecting steelbooks, despite its foibles.
Oh yeah.
and its shortcomings. I still enjoy
Have you
it.
found yourself getting more choosy?
Yes, as I've got older, certainly, because adult money needs to go further,
Yeah.
and unless it's the MCU, I think twice about pressing pre-order.
But MCU would always get your
100%.
Okay.
And I have friends who are massive into their films.
Yeah.
I got one particular friend who's massively into his films but doesn't buy anything anymore. Constantly relies on streaming and digital, which I completely understand. I rely on digital for certain things.
Yeah.
But your internet goes down.
Mm.
You've got little source of entertainment these days.
Mm.
What's that? Here's Jaws in 4 different versions. I'll bung it in the Xbox.
Yeah.
Boom. Entertainment for 2 hours.
Yeah. I think streaming, we love streaming, right? No argument there. But I do think one of the things that we're losing is those physical releases. When you look back at Netflix, they at least they got a few seasons in releasing their Marvel shows. And they had some nice steelbooks with artwork by the comic book artists. And at least you could get a physical copy of the Netflix shows. And obviously they stopped eventually. But you look at something like Prey, right? That's just come out. Now that has been in such good reviews and such positive feedback. And I've had loads of people asking, is that going to get a physical release? Now that would be, I guarantee that would be a bestseller. And looking at the promotional artwork and posters that have come along,
it would look good on Steelbook.
It would look fantastic, right? It would look fantastic. And they could put it on, to be honest, with minimal effort, minimal extras, just a good 4K transfer, Atmos soundtrack, some nice artwork, and that thing would sell out in a heartbeat. And I've asked Xavi.
Oh, exclusive.
Well, because they do the Disney exclusive, right? So if anyone knows, Xavi are going to know. And the answer I got back was basically no. It doesn't look like they're interested.
Did they
in
not
doing
just say keep an eye on our socials?
No, I have better contacts than that.
Good. I'm glad, because every time I see that, I'm like, nice one. Thanks for. It's I
you
don't know. I
know
hope this helps.
Anything about what you've been asked?
No.
No. Fortunately, I've got some higher up contacts.
Good for you.
And we both agree that would sell.
Yeah.
And as much, I think Xavi have tried suggesting a few different things to Disney to do something in the Steelbook, right? So I don't know. For example, would you be interested, for example, if they brought out a Steelbook for WandaVision or Miss Marvel or one of the series, Loki, whatever? It didn't have a disc in it.
No.
Okay. You wouldn't want the Steelbook just for the shelf?
No, it takes up space. No reason. No need for it.
That's cool.
And I've already got Disney Plus.
Yeah, so you can watch the thing on Disney Plus, but you got your Steelbook to go with you got your MCU Steelbook collection.
Feel up at the Steelbook at the Yeah, but I'm collecting the MCU movies. Right, there we are.
TV show's not included.
No.
Okay, but
start wrapping it up.
All right, we'll wrap up. But I think in terms of obviously streaming is taking over. Overall, disc sales are declining, physical sales are declining. But I do think they're still being kept alive by the collectors who go for Steelbooks and other limited editions.
Physical media will always win. It's going to be the best possible quality you could get.
Yep.
It's going to degrade, obviously. But if the server gets shut down or goes bang, you got it. It's tangible.
Yeah, I do think that certainly the big studios, not the indies, because they know what they're doing. They are kind of doing the Lord's work. But I think the big studios can't afford to get complacent. If we see another round of MCU Steelbooks, I know you'll buy them all.
I'm keeping them going.
Whatever, right? You're keeping them going.
Oh wait, no, I don't rebuy the MCU Steelbooks. I want to say, all of mine are original editions.
Okay.
Thank you. I should clarify that.
So you didn't go through the lenticular collection?
Oh, bollocks to that, no.
Right, okay. But there are people who do, right?
Oh, yeah, and good for them, but no.
But I think that some of these studios do run the risk of taking the piss. And certainly the way
Disney taking the piss? Never.
I know, right? But I think certainly the way things are going at the moment, people are going to be a lot more choosy about what they buy.
Cost of living crisis, Steelbooks are going to be the first thing they get at the back end.
And I do think if studios want to kind of get through that, they need to get a bit smarter and kind of, tap into some of the stuff that maybe hasn't had releases yet. Otherwise, people just won't bother. They're not going to bother buying their 5th copy of fucking Jaws or whatever it might be.
Oh, I might.
Well, you might, obviously. Yeah. To go with your Jurassic Parks that you've got and all that. Anyway, we finally did it. We finally spoke about Steelbooks. Happy now.
I'm happy.
I'm delirious.
Good. I'm looking forward to a lie down after this episode.
There's probably things we still didn't cover.
Oh, we definitely didn't.
And I'm sure people will happily send comments and follow-ups, and it might be a subject that we come back to.
Well, I'd like to do a listener edition, listener feedback comments edition of the Culture Trumpet podcast, and whether it's good or bad, I think it'd be quite fun.
I would actually also like to, if any listeners are out there who are interested, have a chat with some collectors.
That'd be brilliant.
Just to kind of, we've talked on about what we collect and what we like, and whether it's Steelbooks or movies in general, or Lego or whatever it might be. What do you guys collect?
Even if it's like the obscurest thing, if you collect like China dolls, I want to know. I want to.
I mean, that's a bit creepy. I'm not sure if I want to know that.
It's the first thing that came to mind. There's weirder things I could have spoken about, Mark.
The fact that that's the first thing that came to your mind is even creepier. But yeah, if there's any collectors out there that
I collect guitar picks. Nobody want to know about that? No? Okay, fair enough. Thank you again to Plumeria, if I'm saying that correct.
I think that's the way to say it.
I appreciate that. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, give him a like, give him a follow, buy some stuff.
Yeah. All the links in the description.
Not an ad.
Not an ad.
And then we'll see you here. No, we won't fucking see you every week. God alive.
I just let you keep saying it.
I don't know. The worst bit is I don't even edit it out. I leave it in. You'll be listening to us in a few weeks.
If you're lucky. Or not, as the case may be.
They're always unlucky if they tune into this shit. Anyway,
I'm off to polish a few Steelbooks. So
nice and slowly, making eye contact with anybody in the room, even if it's the dog.
Catch you later.
Bye.